How often is it okay for men to ejaculate if they're practicing retention and non-ejaculation lifestyle? You will still ejaculate sometimes, right? So what is an okay frequency of ejaculation, or in fact the best frequency for you? So in this video I will explain to you why the ancient Taoist frequency per age is nonsense, what are the real factors that determine your ejaculation frequency, what are the signs that you shouldn't or you should ejaculate, why the biggest one is what you do during sex, how to tell if you really need to come or you're just tempted, and 2 easy ways to build your ideal ejaculation frequency. So a lot of the time online, people refer to this, ancient Taoist table. This is how often you should come if you are 20, this is how often if you are 30, if you are 40, 50, etc. Maybe it's more of a superstition that they had in those times. That's not relevant to our lifestyle. I think it doesn't make any sense, especially from what I've seen over the years working with my clients, seeing how sexual energy works so differently for different men, depending on their life, on their relationship, on their situation. What is completely undeniable is that, there are huge benefits to not ejaculating, and it can totally change your life. You must take it up. There are massive benefits for your well-being, for your vitality, for your energy, for your relationship, for your quality of sex, for your frequency of sex, your attraction, your desire, your emotional connection, your focus, your creativity, your motivation, everything. And I made a video on that. It's an older video now, you can watch it. But a lot of people can't just not ejaculate forever. So there are some people who turn it into, an adventure sport and a really extreme version where they don't come for many months or more for spiritual reasons, or some extreme version of biohacking. Now, if that's your kind of thing, by all means, you can sort of, go in that direction. But most people are just interested in, feeling better, feeling well in their normal daily life, in their normal relationship, while they have a sex life and they want to enjoy all of it. So for most people, I actually recommend just a good balance. Some sex with ejaculation, some sex without ejaculation. And really then, it just becomes a matter of a certain balance that you are just aware of. You can have too little sexual energy, or you can have, too much sexual energy that becomes, tense, pent up. So you're just regulating it and just get to know your rhythms, what's the optimal. When you have too little, when you deplete yourself too much through ejaculations, you feel depleted, sluggish, unfocused, you have brain fog, you feel low in sexual energy, you don't feel attracted to sex or to your partner, you feel cranky or irritable with them, you're more compulsive, leading to other, dopamine hits, etc. But if you have too much sexual energy that's been building up through too much not ejaculating, then you might have that feeling of imbalance, that tension in you, like a little bit unwell with too much sexual tension. Maybe you're too reactive sexually, or you have obsessive sexual thinking, and it's difficult for you to actually enjoy sex because you want to come so much and you feel so unwell if you don't, and you have to be really careful not to come because your body has become so reactive. So there's no point in suffering in that part of the range as well. There are diminishing returns to that, really. And at some point you kind of feel that the benefit is not growing anymore in making you feel well. Now it's making you feel a little bit unwell. So really it's a matter of being aware of these two extremes and being aware of what you need today. And don't worry, relax, it's not a big deal. You can experiment. You're not going to die from ejaculation if you got it wrong. And the great thing is that if you got it wrong, if you do feel depleted, it's actually really easy to correct. You just need to have sex again without ejaculating, because if you do it well, if you generate really good sexual energy, you channel it, you leave it in yourself, then that will restore whatever the ejaculation has created. Now, it completely doesn't work to build that frequency purely on age, like that, supposed ancient Taoist table suggests, or any other table of that sort. Because the situation is a lot more dynamic, and there are a lot more factors that are affecting how frequently you actually need to ejaculate. Age is only one of those factors. Yes, it is true that younger men will be able to come a lot more than older men without feeling the same depleting effect. But if that was the only factor, then all men in their 40s and their 50s would be in the grave by now, because they do masturbate a hell of a lot more than they used to in ancient China 2000 years ago. So it clearly doesn't work quite like that. So what are the other factors that are influencing how often it is okay for you to ejaculate? So apart from age, the second really influential factor is the age of your relationship. In the same way as, you think when you're a teenager or you're in your early 20s, you can just come a lot because you have a lot of energy. Well, when you initially meet, your relationship is like a teenager. There's all this passion, all that sexual energy. That's why people, don't come out of bed for days in the beginning. So that means that, temporarily for that honeymoon phase, you can probably come quite a lot more without any depletion that you feel. So really, for a lot of men, the frequency of ejaculation doesn't really come into play a lot during the honeymoon phase, or certainly, during a one-off. Sometimes people have relationships where the honeymoon phase is extended through not seeing each other often, or seeing each other from time to time for a very intensive stint. So then also all those rules that, you should only come twice a month, they completely make no sense to you. That's not your experience. However, past the honeymoon phase, once you get into the more kind of long-term relationship, regular sex life, that's when you will find that you can come a lot less frequently. Otherwise, you will feel depleted and you will not want to have sex with your partner. The exception to that could be, men who are hungry, who are not getting sex from their partners, and they are sexually tense, and then they feel that they can come all the time, anytime it's available. Another really important factor is your general lifestyle, your general well-being, basically your physiology, which will vary so much from men to men. You can have a 50-year-old man who has a lot of energy, psycho-emotional factors, well-being, which make him full of sexual energy. You can have a 20-year-old man who, due to his lifestyle or psycho-emotional factors or the current energy levels or well-being, can come a lot less than that 50-year-old man. Now, that's all probably a no-brainer, but the interesting thing to realize is that for you, that will fluctuate from week to week. You can have a week when you feel really great and you have a lot of sexual energy and you can come every day. You can have another week when you have stress at work, or you're just feeling under the weather, or whatever is going on, and then once a week will deplete you. For you, for the same person. So somebody telling you that for your decade, this is how often you should come, every month or every week, completely makes no sense. The most important factor is actually how you have sex. People are sometimes in this mindset, how often should I ejaculate? Like, all sex is equal. But no, it's what you do with that sexual energy during sex that changes everything. If you have really good skills, how to create really rich, nourishing sexual energy during sex, and that happens in your whole body but also in the genitals, then you generate a lot of sexual energy, which then, even if you ejaculate, a lot of it stays with you, so you can ejaculate a lot more frequently and not feel that depleting effect. If, like most men, unfortunately, you are just having a quick run of stimulating, rubbing the penis to release into the orgasm, then you're generating nothing in that kind of sex. You're still on the baseline. You haven't generated a lot of sexual energy to be way off the baseline and then to release energy from there to still have the net gain. You're still on the baseline, haven't generated nothing, and you are releasing your energy from that baseline. You're just sending a whole chaos of chemistry into your brain to feel rough as hell afterwards. The other component is, are you channeling your sexual energy during sex? And if you are you doing it effectively, or are you using one of these techniques that are actually not doing anything? If you are channeling your sexual energy during sex from your genitals, well, then again, you are absorbing a lot of it before you release. So once you've released, a lot of it is already staying with you, and that means you can come a lot more often without that sense of depletion. But if you're not doing that, then yeah, all of it is flushed out with ejaculation, and then you feel it wipes you out a lot more, and then your frequency will have to be really spread out for you to recover. The method of non-ejaculating, are you really managing your non-ejaculation well? Like, you're really letting your sexual energy calm down after not ejaculating, you're getting out all the excess, you are integrating it, you're closing it well, or do you just abruptly stop and that's it, you didn't come? Because obviously the effect afterwards is going to be very different. Either you're going to be really kind of nicely well balanced and feeling great, or you're going to be all tense. So, creating really rich, nourishing quality of sexual energy, channeling it well into yourself during sex, and then closing it well and not ejaculating properly with a good method, well, that means you can ejaculate a lot more frequently and still feel great. And by the way, if you're interested in learning all this properly, if you've always wanted to know how to feed yourself with your sexual energy properly in your life, I do teach all of these best practices in both of my programs, The Perfect Lover for Men and The Holistic Sex for Men and Women. So these are just some of the main factors that will influence how often you need to ejaculate. So because of all these very dynamic factors, nobody can tell you, yes, not ejaculating is good for you, but if you are going to ejaculate, you must ejaculate at this frequency and no more than this. Because it's going to be wildly different for all men, and for you it's going to be different from one phase to another. So you just need to feel where your energy is at. Do you feel like you have too much sexual energy built up and tense and it's making you feel a bit unwell, then release it. If you feel actually a bit depleted sexually and generally, and you could do with being revitalized, you could do with a boost, then don't come. And the way you feel it is those typical signs that I mentioned earlier in the video. So there are two ways to go about it, really. One way to go about it would be to say that you are going to not ejaculate until you feel like you really need to. So by default, if you don't feel like you really need to, it means that you could build up more sexual energy, you could benefit more from it. So until you're beginning to feel a bit too unwell with sexual tension in general, until then, don't release, and then at that point, release. The other way you can go about it is from the feeling, can I afford to come today? Do you feel so high on life and so high on energy that you can come today because you just want to enjoy it? You'll basically be okay even if you come. Then come, because there will be other days when you feel already quite sort of, tired or a bit low, and then you know that if you're going to come, it's going to send you even further down. And then you really need your resources to regenerate more from having sex. Now, here I will give a bit of advice on how to know when you genuinely need to come, to release excess of your sexual energy. You don't make that decision during sex when you're close to an orgasm. You will always feel that you need to come because it's so tempting. If you really have an excess of sexual energy that is making you tense and unwell, it's far more reliable to get a bearing on that outside of sex, just during your normal day. You'll get a feeling, it's some kind of a sexual tension that's not sitting right with me. And vice versa, it will show you if you genuinely don't need to come. Even though before, during sex, you were really tempted and just about to convince yourself that you really need to come. A little bit later, during your day, you feel fantastic and you're glad that you didn't come. And another tip for you to assess the real effect that ejaculation has on you. Did it deplete you or not? So you can be learning from these experiences. Again, you don't do it within the first 5 minutes after an orgasm. Anybody will feel amazing. It's about 3 or 4 hours later that the effect of the ejaculation on your brain chemistry really is showing itself. So that's when you can see those signs that I mentioned earlier of depletion or not. So with time, you'll start finding a certain rhythm that normally maybe by about day 5 or day 7 or day 10, I start feeling like, it's too much for me to keep holding on to that sexual energy and I do need to release. But when I have a particularly upbeat week, it's not like this. I can come every couple of days. So you will start knowing these things about yourself. And don't worry, relax. It's not a big deal. You can experiment. You're not going to die from ejaculation if you got it wrong. It's just optimizing. It's just for your well-being. So relax. Don't be too strict on it. Don't be too militant. Just relax. Start playing with it. Start experimenting with it. Start finding out how you feel after ejaculating, after not ejaculating in different states, of your life.